very happy to be part of this conference this afternoon. I am much less of an expert than most colleagues speaking today. I am here as a musician. I'm an organ lover, and especially of organ from the Renaissance period. And I also got the chance to write two pieces for Renaissance organ. The first one was Capriccio sopra re fa mi sol for an Antegnati organ in Milan, and the other one was Spiegel for the Van Covenants organ in Alkmaar. And of course, when you create a piece, well, not only is it great, I think, to give life today to this kind of organ, but also you listen to them in another way, because when you perform a piece, the piece is what it is. But when you have to write something new, then I think it's quite a nice invitation. So what I will try to do today is mainly ask questions. I think this project would gain a lot by being placed in a European perspective. Not only for the Leuven project, but also for our knowledge of the Renaissance art of organ building. And I would like maybe to start with a first map, because probably not everybody knows here what were the Low Countries in the 16th century. And we have to remind that still at the time of Crinon, it's approximately the modern Benelux, Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg. It was one entity of 17 provinces under Spanish rule. After, at the end of the century, there was a separation after long wars and conflicts, and the northern provinces unified made the Netherlands, the northern Netherlands, and the south Netherlands was still under Spanish rule, with Liège as a bishopric still being independent or more on the German side. But even if politically separated, it's very clear that culturally there were a lot of links, contacts. The same musicians were traveling, and many organs were built by Wanoun or Liège organ builders in other parts, and vice versa. So, we already had a view on this very old, I think the oldest instrument, Peter, is that correct, in the Netherlands, from the late 15th century. And this is probably the best organ preserved and beautifully restored by French rock. This an organ of 1511 in Alkmaar, a wonderful organ, because most pipes are still original, even if it was transformed in several times. But still a very, very inspiring instrument. And one of the first questions would be, in how much this kind of organ building of Van Covenants are still, is there still an influence, or can we find an inspiration or answers when we have to rebuild an instrument that was built only 40 years later on here in Leuven. This is the oldest organ case we have in Belgium. It's not anymore in its original state, nor for the front. It's been altered. The repositive has been added later on, and there are neo-Gothic elements on the front. But still, it is the most ancient organ built by Daniel van der Distelen. But the most pipes within the organ are from the late 17th century, still very interesting, but not anymore from the 15th or 16th century. So these are my first questions. The first question is, was there a difference between organ building in North and South Netherlands until the separation? In other terms, how much can the Van Hovelen's organ in Alkmaar can be an inspiring element, or even more than inspiring, a model, a reference in rebuilding something new here in Leuven? And the second question is, did the political and religious separation between northern and southern provinces influence the art of organ building? Or has it been a sort of unified field of organs for many more decades until somewhere in the 17th century? Still, I think these are only a few questions, and I think that Johan already gave the beginning of answers, of proposals to answer some of them. Very clearly, what do we know about Crinon? The contract presented by Mr. Herbert is a very concrete element, but let's be honest, we know nothing of Crinon because nothing has been left. Not a case, not a pipe. I think we are in a sort of, and it's very interesting to be creative, but we miss something very substantial. Andrés Siagalan will speak after about the fact that Kabel invited Crinon to Madrid, and why. I think it's Cabezon was probably the most important organ player and composer in his own time. He traveled, and maybe he was also the most traveler organist in the time, traveling always with Charles V and Philip II. He visited almost all countries in Europe, and he chose Crinon to make the organs in Madrid. There must have been a reason for that, and we can even guess that he found Crinon was the best organ builder, the most advanced, maybe the more innovative person. But I'm sure Andrés will give us more about that. For example, a very precise question is, we have more knowledge about Niehoff, for example. We still have pipes of Niehoff in different organs, even in Belgium and also in Germany and probably also in the Netherlands. Can we say that it is the same family in terms of organ building, or are there strong differences? And my last question at this stage is, where can we find today traces of these early Flemish instruments in Belgium and in Europe? So I will show a few examples of that. This is an instrument still existing in Liège, built by Nicolas Niehoff in 1589, and it's very likely, I think Dr. Vente told us, looked at the pipes and told us these are still the front pipes by Niehoff. If that is the case, of course, it's very, very interesting. The organ is now a Merklin organ inside, so there is very little from Niehoff, but still to find front pipes, maybe untouched or very, because they are not anymore in use, so we might look at that and find probably interesting things for the reconstruction of a Renaissance organ. This is one of the most beautiful organ cases, I think, in the time, the Saint-Jacques organ. The case is old, all pipes are new, reconstructed by Schumacher in 98. And here we see very clearly what Jean was saying about this typical particularity on the sides of the organ with a curved on this. I think this is one of the most elegant organ cases from that time we have still preserved. This is not exactly. It's a transformed organ by Matthias Langedue, who was, I think, one of the most important organ builders in terms of contact between Flanders, Spain, and France. He built, in France, the organ in Saint-Gervais that much later on was the organ played by the family Couperin. But he built several organs in Brussels, in Antwerp for John Bull, in Liège, and so we have certain elements, but even here the front pipes are not anymore by Langedue. This is quite exceptional, and I would like to thank Andres for letting me discover this beautiful instrument. Unfortunately, what we see is not really what we hear, because it's been rebuilt or transformed rebuilt in the 18th century, but without any trompetaria, and which is in its own way quite exceptional in Spain in the 18th century. Most pipes are coming from a Flemish organ builder established in Seville in the 16th century. In all these Spanish cities, there were Flemish organ builders, one family in each city. And this might be one of the best organ now to listen to what was the art of Flemish organ building in Spain. Hear the richness of the sound, and I was willing to. I don't have the recording myself of this organ, but it's an organ in Sweden built by Franz Brebos, and the sound of the principal four is very, very close to what we just hear in Spain. So it's probably the same family in terms of family in the spiritual sense, not the same family of organ builders, but the same style, the same aesthetics. And this is Castagno was in the south of Europe, this is in the north of Europe, and we find a very close style. So it was, I think this shows how Flemish organ builders have been very influential, not only doing their own job in those cities, countries, but also influencing the art, the local art of organ building for the future generation. This is an example. This is Lerma in Castilla, and you look at the name Diego de Quijano, it's a Spanish name, but this organ builder is the grandson of a Flemish, I don't remember, Andres, is it Brebos or? Gilles Brebos, okay. So this is the grandson of Gilles Brebos, and he built two organs in 1616 in the beautiful church of Lerma. This organ has not been, in fact, has lost all its pipes, so it's been a restoration, a reconstruction by Joaquin Lois, but based on a very good documentation. So this is, I think, actually a very good example of how to rebuild an organ when you have, in that case, they had still a lot of elements, such as, I think, the keyboards, the wind chest, and even more than that, and parts of the pipes, which gave the possibility of finding what proportion of tin and lead was used, and I think the result is quite remarkable. We are coming back to Belgium with this Christian Ancien from Huy, a Walloon organ builder, building in Sint-Truiden at the Begijnhofkerk, a rather small instrument, but still very well preserved, very, very interesting. And strange enough, less than 500 meters far from there is another organ by the same organ builder, Christian Ancien, middle of the 17th century, and beautifully restored by Verschuren this last year. So it's brand new as a restoration, and you see how similar the cases are. This is another example. We already heard twice speaking about this beautiful organ built by André Séverin in Liège, and this organ is now in Kuik, also restored but 30 years ago by Verschuren. Elsenveld gives an idea or invites us to look about Blasius Bremser, an important Flemish organ builder who built several organs. Still, I think Ekeren is the one with the most proportion of old pipes. This is a complete reconstruction by Thomas in 2008. In Italy, even if Italy was quite separated from the northern art of building, the Jesuit Hermans built at least two, I think more than two, but two organs are still existing and absolutely beautiful. This organ in Pistoia, and if today we have to reconstruct the reeds, probably it's there that we can find the well-preserved reeds from the 17th century in the Flemish organ building, also very well restored by Lorenzini in 95. So my second list of questions is, what was specific in the Flemish organs from about 1580 until the late century? Why do I ask this? Because we have nothing left from the 16th century. We have quite a lot of things preserved from the 17th century, and the beautiful concert we heard yesterday on the Begijnhof organ here, Goldfuss organ, beautifully restored by Joris Potryk, who is present, I think gave us an idea of how beautiful, brilliant, remarkable this organ building was. What was the continuity between the Renaissance and this Baroque period at the end of the 17th century? In many pieces yesterday, I got the impression we were quite close still to the Renaissance model, even if it was not yet, not anymore built in that style or in that period of time. What kind of continuity can we find? And if we study that very carefully, then we might find here in Belgium or in the Netherlands some examples that could help for rebuilding a Crinon organ. And I have also another question more in general. We now see very clearly that in 17th, 18th century, even more, that the different languages, the different cultures, the different traditions have been influencing very much the organs in such a way that the German organ doesn't speak as a French one or Italian one. That's very, very clear. How much that was already the case in the 16th century, this is an open question that might be for an open debate, not for one day, but for a week. So, my conclusion is, and this is not a question, this is a conviction, but also an invitation. I am convinced that a European study is absolutely necessary. We cannot look at Crinon. We have too little documentation about Crinon, and if we just look at him alone. So we need to identify what are the early instruments that can be taken as references, or what parts of elements of instruments can be studied, documented, and helping us to know more about what Crinon has probably been. We need to study and to make a very strong comparison. I see this as a collective study. I don't think it's possible to do that by one or two persons. We need to gather experts from different countries, organ builders, organists, experts, and my feeling is, in that case, we can look at the Crinon reconstruction in Leuven as a case study, not only for this particular church and this particular city, but I think that would be, if we do that study very well, it might be very important for a better knowledge of the Renaissance art of organ building throughout Europe. Thank you.